Our event today is Bangladesh Genocide of 1971 and a call for international recognition. I would like to especially welcome our panelists who have joined us today. And before that, I would also like to express my thanks to our co-organizer and sort of partner in today's event, which is the Department of Risk and Disaster Reduction of the University College London. And we have with us Dr. Bais Ahmed, representative of the UCL. And I would especially like to welcome also our panelists, Lord Remy Ranger, who's also a patron of the Conservative Friends of India, but also very vocal on the issue of genocide. I'd like to especially welcome Her Excellency, Ms. Gayatri Sakumar, the High Commissioner of India to the UK, Professor Joanne Di Giorgio Lutz, Department Head of Liberal Studies, Texas A&M University, joining us from USA. She is an author of The Women in Genocide, Gender Experiences of Violence, Survival and Resistance. I'd like to welcome Mrs. Jasmina Sarajevic, Minister Counselor of the Embassy of Bosnia and Herzegovina in the UK. I'd also like to especially welcome from Dhaka, Professor Dr. Meghna Guhu-Thakurta, Executive Director of Research Initiatives Bangladesh, but who's also the daughter of and victim family of one of the most eminent Dr. Guhu Thakurta, one of the intellectuals of Bangladesh who was brutally killed during the 1971 genocide of Bangladesh. And last but not the least, I'd like to welcome Mr. Sultan Mahmud Sharif, who was one of the members of the Bangladesh Student Action Committee that took action against genocide and created the Overseas Front of Bangladesh Liberation War with a specific three slogans of Stop Genocide, Recognize Bangladesh, and Release Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman during the 1971 war here in the UK, a distinguished British Bangladeshi senior member. So with these few words, I would like to first, on this day, pay my deep homage to all the victims of 1971 genocide in Bangladesh, particularly thousands of people who died on the night of 25 March 1971, which our nation calls as Black Night. And I would like to pay my also deep homage to the father of the nation of Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, without whose charismatic leadership and for 23 years, between 1947 and 1971, Bangladesh nation, our Bengali nation, would not have been able to achieve our independence. I would also pay my humble and profound respects to more than 3 million martyrs and victims of genocide of the 1971 war, and more than 200,000 women who were systematically raped, sexually violated, impregnated, and all kinds of victims of war during the 1971 war. I would like to pay my tributes and respect to the valiant freedom fighters and also the intellectuals who died during 1971, who were brutally murdered in the Nazi style 2 days before our Victory Day on 16 December. With these words, I would also like to mention that in 1971, what happened on 25 March? The people of Bangladesh witnessed the brutal killing of 3 million people, displacement of nearly 30 million citizens, 20 million internally displaced, and 10 million that fled in fear of life to take shelter in neighboring India, which opened its border for Bangladeshi and Bengali refugees. We witnessed violation of more than 200,000 women, widespread torture, rape, ethnic cleansing, and destruction of all ages of people. Every single family has a victim of genocide in Bangladesh, or ethnic cleansing, or crimes against humanity, or rape that resulted in genocide. In 1971 genocide, that included simultaneous killing of innocent civilians from all over Bangladesh. It was attacked in famous Operation Searchlight by the Pakistan Armed Forces that was deployed throughout Bangladesh. The pattern of killings during the Operation Searchlight and the entire wartime shows clear intention to destroy and eliminate certain selected sections of our society, particularly targeted elimination of individuals on the ground of religion, race, and political belief, and intellectual excellence, civilians, Hindu students in Hindu community, political leaders, and Bengali members of the armed forces of East Pakistan. In the famous one example that we particularly like to mention, there is a famous Jagannath Hall at the Dhaka University, which was reserved for Hindu students, but also Muslim students lived there, but it was majority Hindu students. On 25 March night, they were brutally brush fired, all the students in Jagannath Hall, just because they were Hindus and they were Bengalis. And a Muslim professor of the Jagannath Hall secretly documented it in his camera. According to the report of British journalist Mr. Simon Drain in the Daily Telegraph in 1971, more than 7,000 people were killed on the night of March 25 only in Dhaka city. After witnessing the atrocities committed on Bengalis, our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, declared the independence of Bangladesh in the early hours of March 26, 1971, and was arrested thereafter to be taken to Pakistani imprisonment for the next 9 months during the War of Liberation. But that night, and the call of the father of the nation, prompted 75 million Bengali civilians to take arms to resist and retaliate these mass atrocities committed against the Bengali people by the Pakistan Armed Forces. And they took the vow that until we free the land, as father of the nation instructed, of the last Pakistani occupation force, we will not rest our arms and we will not allow people to be massacred. And thus the 9-month-long Bengali our War of Liberation started. In 2017, at the initiative of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh Parliament declared 25 March as Bangladesh Genocide Remembrance Day, indeed with the objective of highlighting the atrocities that were committed on the soil of Bangladesh during 1971, but also to express solidarity with genocide victims from all over the world. American poet and writer Allen Ginsberg, in his September on Jessore wrote, portrayed a graphic picture and narrative of the plight of the 10 million Bengali refugees from East Bengal, which took shelter en masse in India. And I quote, millions of souls, 1971, homeless on Jessore Road, under grey sun, 1 million are dead, the million who can walk towards Calcutta from East Pakistan. This shows the plight of the Bengali refugees and the plight of those atrocities, ethnic cleansing, torture, war crimes and crimes against humanity, rape, use of, rape as a weapon of war, everything that took place on the soil of Bangladesh against the Bengali people. One more issue is, 2 days before the Pakistani army surrendered to the joint command of Bangladesh and India, Pakistani armed forces, with the help of local collaborators, had blindfolded and brush fired hundreds of Bengali intellectuals, just picking them up from the homes in Dhaka University, from different parts of the country, and simply brush fired them. And their dead bodies were found later on blindfolded. And there's a monument for them in Raya Bazaar in Dhaka. Apart from that, we have already spoken about the women who were violated and sexually violated during the 1971 war genocide. The international media had covered 1971 mass atrocities and also in the quote unquote in genocide quite widespreadly. And both I would like to just quote, even though during the war all the foreign reporters were actually detained in Hotel Intercontinental and not allowed to go and cover all these mass atrocities, but there were good coverage, and I would just like to mention few, which is Daily Telegram on March 29, 1971, published an article, No Mercy in Pakistan Fighting, and it said, West Pakistani troops tightened the army grip on the East province, but the indications were that killing was on a mass scale. The troops were showing no mercy and trying to terrorize the civilian population. Killing on a mass scale is underway in East Pakistan. The shelling of the capital, Dhaka, has been cold-blooded and indiscriminate, although there were almost no sign of armed resistance from the people. The time on April 12, 1971, that means not even 10 days had passed after the Declaration of Independence, Pakistan round one to the west, and it says, I quote, there is no doubt that the word massacre applies to the situation. It is a variable bloodbath. The troops have been utterly merciless. Estimates of a total dead ran as high as 300,000. And this is the first 10 days of Bangladesh Liberation War, where Time, a newspaper of UK, is acknowledging that more than 300 were massacred just between 26 March and 10 April and 12 April. On June 13, eminent Pakistan journalist Anthony Mascarenhas published during 1971 in an article, and it said, "I have witnessed the brutality of kill and burn missions as the army units. After clearing out the rebels, pursued the program in the towns and villages. I have seen whole villages devastated by punitive action, and in the officers' mess at night, I have listened incredulously as otherwise brave and honorable men proudly chewed over the day's kill. How many did you get?" Mr. Arthur J. Blood, who was the US Consul General during 1971 in Bangladesh, in a telegram had written an official communication, which was considered to be an official communication of dissent by an American diplomat, wrote to State Department in Washington, D.C., along with 29 staff members of the US Consulate in Dhaka. "Our government has failed to denounce atrocities. We have chosen not to intervene, even morally, in which unfortunately the overworked term genocide is applicable, is purely an internal matter of a sovereign state. Private Americans have expressed disgust. We as professional public servants express our dissent with current policy and fervently hope that our true and lasting interests here can be defined and our policies redirected to order the salvage of nation's position as a moral leader of the free world." Later on, Mr. Arthur Blood was considered, that particular communication was considered to be a dissent telegram, but later on, the US State Department honored him and changed the policy that any US diplomat, if he or she witnesses mass atrocities or genocide, they can communicate and they can also take a decision against the government policy. So this is a great honor of recognition of Bangladesh genocide war. I just want to mention very briefly that Indian Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi, and I'd like to pay my deep respects to her because she's the one who said that India could not remain a silent spectator of events in East Pakistan. And thus, she opened her borders to Bangladesh and Bengali refugees and sheltered 10 million Bengali refugees in the camps of India and protected us from getting massacred by the Pakistan army. On 16 August 1971, Senator Edward M. Kennedy, who was the chair of the Senate Humanitarian Committee, after visiting the Bengali refugee camps in India, denounced Pakistan military action against the East Pakistani separatists as genocide. And he said the secret trial of the East Pakistani leader, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, was an outrage to every concept of international law. The only crime that Mujib is guilty of is winning an election. With these words, I would like to take this opportunity to again pay respects to the genocide victims of 25 March 1971 and throughout our entire 9 months of war of liberation, and also express solidarity with genocide victims from all over the world, including Cambodian genocide, with around 3 million approximately dead. The Rwandan genocide in 1994, with casualties of 800,000 approximately, and the Srebrenica massacre, 1995, during the Bosnian civil war, casualties of more than 40,000 approximately. And also the indiscriminate killing of ethnic minority groups in South Sudan since the 2013 civil war, the Yazidis, Shiites, and Christians being slaughtered in Syria and Iraq, and of most recent and close to our home in Bangladesh, genocide, intent of genocide, and mass atrocities committed against the Rohingya people of Rohingya origin, which are currently sheltered in Bangladesh at the behest of and generosity and compassionate grounds of humanitarian gesture of Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And currently this has been contested at the International Court of Justice. I also would like to mention that in yesterday, Bangladesh, there was a 11th emergency session, special session of the UN General Assembly, and Bangladesh voted in favor of the resolution. And we did so, even though we abstained the last time, this time we voted in favor because this resolution was on the humanitarian consequences of the aggression against Ukraine, where we expressed our solidarity. And this was the only ground to support this resolution is what we experienced in 1971. We did not want the Ukrainian people, but more importantly, the crisis that is erupted in Poland and neighboring countries, the civilians, to face the same humanitarian crisis. And that is why I want to mention this about yesterday's voting. And I would like to conclude by mentioning that in 1971, here we have Mr. Sultan Mahmud Sharif and many others who have joined freedom fighters, that in 1971, the Bengali British community, the most strongest pillar of our Bangladesh-UK relations, had created the most invincible front of overseas movement of our liberation war. And they demanded the stop of genocide and ethnic cleansing of Bengali people here at the Westminster. At that time, common people could walk into the doors of every MP. So they went to any MP that they could. They stood in front of the parliament to seek support and have signatures. And they created action committees throughout the United Kingdom, which demanded and organized demonstrations in Trafalgar Square and Hyde Park in Westminster. And one resolution that came up in June 1971, there was first of all, at the leadership of Mr. Peter Shaw, Sir Peter Shaw at that time, he was a member of parliament from Labour Party. In April 1971, right after the Bangladesh genocide broke out, he had moved a motion at his leadership, and that time he was the chair of the Parliament International Affairs Committee, Foreign Relations Committee at the British Parliament. And at his behest, at his leadership, there was a resolution and motion in the British Parliament recognizing and condemning the Bangladesh atrocities being committed in East Pakistan, then East Pakistan. But later on, in June 1971, we saw, and this is well documented, there was an advertisement in Time magazine, in Time newspaper, in the Time, which was signed by more than 233 British parliamentarians cross-party from Labour Party, Conservative Party, and Lib Dem Party, that called for stop of genocide in East Bengal. And this was at the initiative of a British organization called Action Bangladesh. And the action was totally geared towards stopping the genocide of Bangladesh and its recognition. And here I'll stop now. Today, I know that Remy Ranger is here, UCL is here, British academicians are here, Bangladeshi British community is here, and Indian High Commissioner's Bosnian embassy is here. And the victims, one of our eminent professors is here from Dhaka University. Her father was also an eminent professor and victim of 1971 genocide. My appeal and call today to the UK Parliament and the UK people is that if 1971, we did a motion at the UK Parliament, at the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh genocide, we would like to call upon the UK Parliament to organize another and to initiate another motion at the UK Parliament to recognize the Bangladesh genocide and the 50th anniversary of our genocide. With these words, I'm very, very pleased to give the floor. I know that we have a short 3 minutes documentary, but I'm not going to do it because I know my distinguished colleague from the Indian High Commission, Excellency Gayatri Isakumar, she has a meeting to attend. And even before I give my floor to Mr. Bayas Ahmed from UCL, I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Gayatri Isakumar. I don't know if Excellency has joined us. She has joined. I would like to give the floor to the Indian High Commissioner representing that country that had not only come to support Bangladesh Liberation War, whose soldiers had shed their blood on our soil to support our war of liberation, but most importantly, they had showed the generosity of hosting more than 10 million Bengali refugees, and in solidarity and expression of solidarity of the mass atrocities that were being committed on the soil of Bangladesh against Bengali people. Excellency, you have the floor. And I hope that you could join us.
Namaskar, Your Excellency, Madam Saida Muna Tasneem, High Commissioner of Bangladesh to the United Kingdom, and all the distinguished panelists who I have seen on the screen. I'm very honored, and I consider it a privilege on behalf of the High Commission of India in London to join this panel discussion. I'm glad that you have mentioned genocide, and I think it's important to remember genocide everywhere. Victims of genocide, victims of brutality, victims of inhuman treatment and oppression everywhere in the world, and focus on seeing how we can ensure that this never happens again. We are today sadly commemorating the darkest chapter in Bangladesh's historic freedom struggle. March 25 is Remembrance Day of the genocide that took place in Bangladesh in 1971. As you mentioned, this episode will forever remind us of the sacrifice of all the innocent who had been martyred for the cause of Bangladesh. Remembering this day is also meant to remind us of the need for humanity to do everything possible to ensure that fellow human beings are never again subject to brutality and mass manslaughter, But sadly, such episodes have a way of repeating themselves. That does not mean that we should let it happen. We should remind ourselves of the urgent need for reform of whatever needs to be reformed, ourselves, our systems, our laws, global institutions that were established to maintain peace in the world, everything that the international community can possibly do to rejuvenate human conscience, to make sure that the right measures are put in place. Operation Searchlight, as it was called, was a massive crackdown against Bengali nationalists by the army of its own national government, leading to the mass killing of almost 1 million freedom-loving Bangladeshis. The yearning of Bangladesh for its independence was very much understood and shared in India, quite as much in India as it was in Bangladesh. And as High Commissioner Saida Muna rightly recalled, where on that occasion, when the people of Bangladesh rose against oppression of their language, voice, and identity, we felt equally their pain, we felt equally their sense of purpose. So while the world did not discuss or sufficiently reflect on the cruelty and atrocity of Operation Searchlight as much as it should have, amidst all of this, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman emerged as a ray of hope for his people. President Sheikh Mujibur Rahman wanted nothing less than to build a Shonar Bangla, the Golden Bengal, as described in the poem by poet laureate Rabindranath Tagore, who, as we know, wrote the national anthems of Bangladesh and India. Bangabandhu led from the front to achieve his dream. His words are remembered to this day and often quoted, and I would like to quote them here today. He had said, Bangabandhu had said, and I quote, "My Bangladesh is independent today. My life's desire has been fulfilled today. People of my Bengal have been liberated today. My Bengal will remain free. In my state, in this Bangladesh, Bangladesh will be a secular state. Today, we will build a new and prosperous Bengal. The people of Bengal will be happy again, live life merrily, and breathe freely in an open atmosphere," unquote. It is to the credit of the people of Bangladesh, under the leadership of Bangabandhu's illustrious daughter, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, that his dream is a reality today. Honorable Prime Minister of India has remarked, and I would like to quote him. He had said, "Joining the freedom struggle for the independence of Bangladesh was one of the first times that I took part in any movement. I must have been about 20 to 22 years old then, and I had many of my colleagues and I took part in the Satyagraha for the people, for the freedom of the people of Bangladesh. I remember today the millions of sons and daughters of Bangladesh who have endured countless atrocities for their country, their language, their culture, who sacrificed their blood and put their lives at stake. I salute the brave soldiers of the Indian Army who stood with their Bangladeshi brothers and sisters in the Mukti Yuddha, gave their blood and sacrificed their lives in realizing the dream of independent Bangladesh," unquote. And our External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, while reflecting on this episode in Bangladesh's history, had said, and I quote, "None of us can ever forget the genocidal campaign launched by the Pakistani forces against the people of Bangladesh in March 1971. Operation Searchlight remains truly one of the most horrific examples of mass atrocities and brutal killing in recent history," unquote. Of course, there was spontaneous support for the people of Bangladesh in India, and India's political, diplomatic, and military efforts are well documented, which were in support of the people of Bangladesh in their struggle to uphold their democratic rights. And it was only natural that when 10 million refugees came to India, the people of India opened their hearts and extended support to their brothers and sisters. Since then, the relations between India and Bangladesh have been central to the realization, and our cooperation has been central to the realization of a shared dream of a peaceful, prosperous, and progressive South Asia. And we in India, we see in Bangladesh a key neighbor, a very important neighbor, a very valued partner, not only in the context of South Asia, but also in the broader Pacific region. Today, Bangladesh is India's biggest trade partner in South Asia, and India is the second biggest trade partner of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is the biggest development partner of India today, and we are presently working on cooperation and development of infrastructure in various sectors, especially roads, railways, shipping, ports, dredging of inland waterways in Bangladesh, construction of India-Bangladesh friendship pipeline. We think that these are the sectors, these are important projects where both of us can bring a huge change in the prosperity of both our peoples. We're also working together on a number of high impact community development projects at the level of the community. And all in all, India feels pride in seeing and happiness in seeing Bangladesh as a remarkable example of development and exceptionally fast growth, from being one of the poorest nations at its birth in 1971 to now a per capita GDP, which has made Bangladesh reach a lower middle income status in 2015, and today it's on track to graduate from the UN's least developed countries list in 20 and it's going to be we are on track. Bangladesh is on track to have a very significant poverty decline from 43.5% in 1991 to 14.3% in 2016, and is on a very positive trajectory. Human development outcomes have also improved in Bangladesh along many dimensions, and we are very happy to be working together on a number of tracks of defense and security, connectivity, trade, and joint development of our shared resources. So therefore, with the greatest affection, and as a friend and a neighbor who shares your pride and is solidly beside you as a reliable partner and sincerest well-wisher, I pray I represent and I speak for the people of India when I say that we pray for the continued success of the people of Bangladesh as you march steadily towards a golden future and the realization of Bangabandhu's dream of a Shonar Bangla. Hearty congratulations, Bangladesh, and wish you the very best in the future as we look back and commemorate a sad day, a sad episode. There's much to look forward to. Jai Bangla.
Excellency, thank you so much for what a wonderful and what an eloquent and full of love and affection statement that you made on our Genocide Day. I would particularly like to mention that you had mentioned that the people of India opened their hearts and minds to other people, victims of atrocity people of Bangladesh during 1971. And I think India has passed that litmus test that any neighbor has to pass when there's a serious humanitarian crisis in the neighboring area. And today we have opened our border to Burmese refugees. And in many ways, starting from 1971 till today, Prime Minister Shri Modi ji's solidarity with 1971 genocide and the atrocities, Foreign Secretary Shri Jaishankar ji's expression of solidarity of calling it the most heinous atrocities and mass atrocities committed in history against the Bengali race. We salute them, we pay our deep respects and gratitude to them for that. And we again reiterate our great gratitude to the Indian government in 1971 for sheltering the 10 million refugees. And I just quoted a little bit of Alan Greensburg's, September on Jessore Road, and that shows what was the state of the refugees that found shelter in India. So once more, I know you have a busy schedule, but thank you so much for your expression of solidarity with Bangladesh. Bangladesh with India are working together for the regional peace, progress, prosperity of the Bay of Bengal and the region. And we look forward to particularly ensure that our region is free of radicalization, free of terrorism, free of extremism, and it continues to be a progressive region where we can enjoy our shared values. So our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina will continue to work with Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, towards that end. And thank you for joining our High Commission's event. I know tomorrow is our Independence Day. So after the dark night of 25 March, our father of the nation declared independence. And tomorrow we look forward to your participation in our Independence Day. Thank you, Excellency, once more time. I now request the 3-minute video to be played on Bangladesh genocide. And I just, request everyone to join us in viewing that. May I request my colleague to play it, please?
(1971). One of the deadliest genocides in human history took place. Genocide includes acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial or religious group. The West Pakistani ruling political and military elites perceived Bengalis racially and ethnically inferior, lesser Muslims, a population infected with Hindu culture. An estimated 3 million Bengalis were killed and 200,000 to 400,000 Bengali women were raped by the Pakistani military and its collaborators. The genocide took place in many phases, in different ways and in various locations. On the 25th of March 1971, Pakistan's military commenced Operation Searchlight. Death squads rampaged through the streets of Dhaka, murdering at least 7,000 people in a single night. The Pakistani military and its collaborators carried out a mass rape campaign against Bengali women, dehumanizing Bengali womanhood. The displacement of an entire demographic of Bengalis testifies to genocide very clearly. One of the most critical pieces of evidence about the 1971 Bangladesh genocide comes from Pakistan in the form of the report of the Hamudur Rahman Commission's inquiry into the 1971 war. The report indicated that mass killings of civilians had indeed occurred. It also recounts army officials' testimony about plotting to arrest and interrogate Bangladeshi intellectuals in December 1971. Many intellectuals were kidnapped and brutally murdered. Their families are witnesses to that tragedy. These heinous crimes are yet to be universally recognized as genocide globally, particularly by the United Nations and other international bodies. Not recognizing the events of 1971 as genocide will not just be a severe injustice done to the memories of the victims of genocide, it will be an injustice done to history itself.
A bird's eye view, a glimpse of Bangladesh genocide, and we thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for sending us this short video clip on the numbers of Bangladesh genocide and the way they were systematically cleansed, including the intellectuals. And today we have one of the victims of the intellectuals that were killed, Dr. Jyotirmoy Guha Thakurdar's daughter, here with us. I just want to give our co-partner, the UCL Department of Risk and Disaster Reduction, Dr. Bayes Ahmed Lecturer, the floor, just to say a few words that, we absolutely, the High Commission worked over the past 3 years since the, Bangladesh and our Honorable Prime Minister opened our borders to the Rohingya refugees from, forcibly displaced Rohingyas from Myanmar. And we had worked together with UCL to showcase and to tell the United Kingdom and other, the two countries that I look after, about the atrocities that were committed on the Rohingyas. And also, I know that UCL, this particular department, is working on the ICJ. They follow the ICJ case and they do research on it. So we're very happy that UCL is partnering today's event. Dr. Bais, you have the floor.
Thank you, Her Excellency Saida Muna Tasnim, the High Commission, Bangladesh High Commission in London, honorable panelists, and we're really glad to be a part of this event. So UCL IRDR stands for Institute for Risk and Disaster Reduction. We started our journey in 2012, but since the Rohingya exodus in 2017, we're very closely working with the High Commission here in Bangladesh, in London. We organized our first International Rohingya Crisis Conference in 2019 at UCL, and we partnered with the Bangladesh High Commission in London. So we really want to continue this kind of events. Our department has given a green signal, and we are in full support to work with the Rohingya crisis as well as the 1971 genocide. We are working to get recognition from the United Nations and the International Court of Justice. It should be recognized as a genocide incident. Myself, I was a lecturer at the University of Dhaka for 2 years, and I know today the Western Pakistani army attacked the Dhaka University and they killed so many innocent professors, academic staff, and other administrative staffs at the University of Dhaka. Not only the staff members, they also attacked some of our student residential halls. So this is really a dark chapter for Bangladesh as well as for the University of Dhaka. So we really want justice and a recognition from the international community. That's why I would like to say UCL will be always partnering with the Bangladesh High Commission, the government of Bangladesh, and we would continue this movement until we get recognition from UN and ICJ as a genocide. And also we are continuing work with ICJ to get recognition for the Rohingya genocide. So probably we have got independence, but a long way to go getting recognition from international communities on genocide incidents, and UCL will be a part of your journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bais, lecturer at the UCL. He's of British Bangladesh origin, and we're very proud that he's joined us today. One thing that I'd like to mention, that the UCL has a Center for Genocide and Holocaust, and we actually wanted to do this program with them. And next time we will, because we will be doing some research with that, and we look forward to your cooperation in that area. Whether we can actually, and I do want to express solidarity with the Jewish victims of the Jewish Holocaust, which is not very far from what happened in the Bengali genocide. With these words, I'd like to give the floor to Professor Joanne Giorgio Lutz, Department of Liberal Studies, Texas A&M University at Galveston, and she's the author of Women and Genocide: Gendered Experience of Violence, Survival, and Resistance. Professor joined us last year as well, and we're extremely grateful to her for joining us today. I would just like to say that, Professor, you're aware that it could be 200,000 women, 300,000 women. The Biranganas, as our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, right after the war, owned up to them and initiated a rehabilitation center. They had rape babies, they were impregnated. He gave their name as the father. Many other generosity he has shown. He was assassinated in 1975. And after that, the Biranganas had lived a life where they have been denigrated in the society. No matter how much recognition state gives them, there is a social barrier that they could not break. And today in 2015, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has recognized them as war heroes and given them the war veteran allowances of Mukti Jodha allowance to all the Biranganas that were listed. And but many Biranganas did not come forward because it's a matter of shame for them. But we know that the shame should not be theirs. The shame should be those who violated them. And till today, we never received apology from Pakistan. The word apology is so important for what happened. And being a woman myself, and you're also a woman, and in that context, it cannot be condoned. It simply cannot be pardoned if they don't ask for apology. And I would like you to reflect that, in global conflicts, when this kind of things happen, does one state seek apology from the others? In the case of Korea or Japan or other wars. Professor, you have the floor, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts at this important event. I've really given a lot of thought in preparing for today to the topic of the recognition of the Bangladesh genocide and what recognition means, but also what the lack of recognition means, not just for Bangladesh, but for the wider international community, and in particular, the academic community, that is the scholars, the faculty, the students, etc. Because without awareness of the Bangladesh genocide, it remains what I've seen in some literature forgotten or really hidden from our analysis. And so I began a sort of academic exercise in which I began to ask a few questions, especially concerning the recognition of the genocide within the academic community. And so I set out to explore how much what I call academic space academia devotes to the genocide and in what context. So that is, I wanted to look at the academic recognition of this genocide. What does it look like and why it's important? And so for one, I think academic recognition of this genocide means that we find the scholarship of this genocide situated within the leading international journals that address the subject of this genocide and in genocide in general. And the prominent journals being Genocide Studies and Prevention, an international journal, the Journal of Genocide Research, Holocaust and Genocide Studies, and even more recently, the Journal of Perpetrator Studies, because that journal allows us to reflect on why people kill in that sense and to delve into that. But it also means presentation of this genocide at leading conferences, genocide conferences, hosted by associations that sponsor the leading journals I just mentioned. For example, the International Association of Genocide Scholars or the International Network of Genocide Scholars. The research breadth of this genocide is substantial. It embraces multiple disciplines, including history, sociology, political science, international relations, museum studies, gender studies. Also, the scope of topics is expansive with respect to this genocide, and this includes research on transitional justice, post-conflict reconciliation, apologies, forgiveness, sexual violence, memorialization, perpetrator research, including collaborators, refugees, displacement, also the role of foreign policy, as well as ideological debates over naming the genocide and understanding really how the genocide unfolded in the context of war and the birth of a new nation. Also, memory studies, collective memory is an area that's emerging and very important for study as well. The scholarship on the Bangladesh genocide is notable. The problem is, for me as an academic, it's not just visible at the top. That is, it's not visible in the leading journals on genocide. So for example, in the Journal of Genocide Studies and Prevention, which is the flagship journal of the International Association of Genocide Scholars, in the 16 years since its inaugural issue, there are no featured articles on this genocide, nor have any of the books that have been published on this genocide been reviewed by the journal. Now, this does not mean that the genocide may not be included in the context of other genocides or other cases, right? But if one were to go to that particular flagship journal and search Bangladesh genocide, nothing would really come up. So there's nothing that's exclusive to this particular genocide. In the Journal of Genocide Research, which is the flagship journal of ENOGS, or the International Network of Genocide Scholars, in their 23 years of publication, only one article in 2003 was published by Wardatul Akman, who makes a case that what transpired in Bangladesh during the War of Liberation was indeed genocide. This article got 1,264 views and 2 citations. In 2011, in the Journal of Genocide Research, commemorating the 40th anniversary, Volume 13, Issue 4 was dedicated to the genocide, with articles on the British perspective, survivor narratives, and even an epilogue that focused on justice and national trials for international crimes. What was really key in this issue was the editor's introduction by Dirk Moses, who's a leading scholar, genocide scholar. And he noted that here's a genocide that claimed the lives of 3 million people, hundreds of thousands of raped women, And it's widely shared in Bangladesh, but it has not been the subject of what he called sustained research in the genocide studies field. This is 40 years after this genocide, he's making this observation. And so Dirk Moses also stated that this special issue was intended to further and stimulate serious academic and empirical study, and to share these findings with the wider genocide community. And this is critical because these are the journals that we turn to when we want to find out more information about specific cases of genocide. So yet, what's interesting is despite Dirk Moses's observation of the international significance of the 1971 war and the genocide, he remarks that this the consciousness that we had about this genocide quickly dissipated. And he concluded 10 years ago, 12 years ago, that there's not sufficient research being done on Bangladesh compared to other cases of genocide, such as Rwanda, such as Bosnia, the Holocaust, even Armenia. So it was his hope that this special issue would add to that research. Interestingly enough, in the 10 years of volumes and issues since that observation, the journal did not publish on Bangladesh. So further inquiry really should investigate submission rates, acceptance rates. So this is not to say that we're not submitting to these journals. The key question is why are they not being published? Scholarship on Bangladesh is visible. It's visible in journals on human rights, on gender studies, journals on Asian studies, regional studies, etc. Yet it's not in the journals that would give it the recognition in the context of genocide and give it its scholarly due. In 2007, in the same journal, predating sort of Dirk Moses's observation, Donald Beechler published an article in a different journal, in Patterns of Prejudice, not even in the leading genocide scholars' journals. And he discussed the politics of genocide on Bangladesh. And he actually foreshadowed Dirk Moses's assertions that little attention is paid to this genocide, and that attention to this genocide is rather selective. And so he gives us a little bit more depth than what Moses did. He documents this undeniable evidence, and he tries to explore why there's so little academic attention to this genocide. And he calls it, especially in the United States among scholars, and he calls it selective compassion. And he offers a few reasons in that sense in terms of why it's not studied, especially in the United States. If you go, and I tried to do this was just an initial perusal of syllabi that are taught at some of the courses in various institutions on comparative genocide, Bangladesh is never mentioned. It's not even given, like if this is Tuesday, we're going to talk about Bangladesh. The main topics, are going to be Cambodia, the Holocaust, Armenia, Rwanda, and possibly now Darfur, and then the Rohingya. Never do we find Bangladesh among syllabi in comparative genocide classes. So how do we expect to get that recognition if it's not out there? He also talks about, too, that we have to also put it in the context of the perpetrators. They don't want this out there. They want this voice silenced. So that has an impact as well. Also, to look at the power of the community group that was victimized, how to raise their voices to bring more attention to this particular genocide. So what does this mean? What does this lack of academic space, especially at the tier levels of journals, et cetera, really mean for advancing genocide? It means that it remains known but undervalued for advancing genocide studies in general, and the Bangladesh genocide in particular. So I would like to offer some ways to maybe overcome this vacuum. One is, I think that Bangladeshi scholars should start mentoring graduate students, steer them into the many approaches and the topics of this study. Multiple disciplines, multiple topics are embraced in this. I think that there also should be attendance at leading conferences on genocide, submit organized panels in advance of those presentations. I know next summer will be the biennial conference of the International Association of Genocide Scholars. And later in the year, they're going to be calling for organized panels. I'd be more than happy to collaborate with any of my colleagues so that we can get an organized panel on this genocide. Also, I would suggest submitting proposals for special issues in these leading journals on the genocide, as well as more submissions of articles to date. Have books reviewed in the leading journals. I happen to be the book review editor for Genocide Studies and Prevention, and I'm happy if you can send me, titles and more recent titles and things like that to get them that prominence and reviewed in the journal. This is what's going to advance that recognition of the significance and the importance of the genocide. And also, I would really suggest trying to collaborate with colleagues globally to try to bring this genocide into the mainstream, teaching about it, right? Teaching more about courses, not just, in a context of Southeast Asian politics, but also in the context of genocide classes, comparative genocide classes. And then also, I really think it's worth exploring in more detail why so little academic space is given to this genocide. And I think I'll stop there in the interest of time. Okay. Thank you.
Professor, thank you so much, Professor Lutz. That was so packed with academic and precise, what should I say, the challenges that Bangladesh genocide is absent from international journals and mentions. There are not enough research done on it, not enough, political resistance to it, and also same time some of the recommendations that you've made. Last year you spoke in our event, there were many other professors speaking, and this year we have recorded your statement, and I just want to let you know that I'm going to convey all of these recommendations to Dhaka University. There is a Center for Genocide now, run by Professor Imtiaz Hussain, and we will send the recommendations to him, and we will try to connect the Dhaka University Center for Genocide with you, so that you can guide us a little bit on how to make, internationalize this genocide, particularly the international conferences of Association of International Genocide intellectuals. It's extremely important that, there are several reasons why this has happened. First of all, right after the war, when we had signed the Shimla Agreement or the, some of the agreements, a Delhi Agreement, and, the prisoners of war were returned to Pakistan. There's a political agreement between the three countries. But at the same time, there was a 1973 War Tribunals, International War Tribunals Act, and I didn't mention in my welcome remarks that in 2010, there was an independent tribunal that was created by the Law Ministry of Bangladesh on War Crimes Tribunal. And some of the cases of war crimes were tried under that tribunal. But it's a national tribunal trying international crimes. So, there also we had difficulties, we finding, evidence and all that, but few, all the victims' families, they want to see some respite, they want to see some closure on this issue, and the tribunal continues. But what is most important is the recognition of the genocide by international community, and it has to start from the academics. And we will continue to work with you, Professor, in this endeavor, and we would engage UCL and other universities in the UK, but we know that there are institutions in the US which are equally important, so we will work trilaterally with the UK and the US institutions. Thank you so much for such a substantive, intervention and your comments in the panel. We are so proud to have you in our panel, and thank you for your time from the US. We hope to keep engaged with you even in next year. With these words, I would like to give the floor to our colleague, diplomat and minister consular from the Embassy of Bosnia, Ms. Jasmina Sarajlik. And we are very much aware of the Srebrenica massacre in Bosnia. And every year, for the last 3 years, I've been attending the Srebrenica Day that is so wonderfully observed in the United Kingdom, in the Parliament sometimes and outside. And last time I went to Lancaster House to attend it, and there were the victims of sexual violence and of the Srebrenica massacre. And today we've invited Embassy of Bosnia to speak. The reason is that we want to listen to their story as well and find similarities and analyze as to how they received international recognition. Whether Bangladesh genocide, as Professor said, after 1975, the assassination of our father of the nation, this story was put under the carpet, and all the evidences were destroyed, and therefore we have actually missed out on 45 years. But thanks to our Honorable Prime Minister in 2017, she's recognized this day as the Bangladeshi Genocide Day. And we will start those researches. Institution has just created, and our War of Liberation Museum is working on it. So we'll work with academics to do so. I give the floor to my colleague from the Embassy of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And, I give my compliments to the ambassador, who could not be present here because he is currently not in London. You have the floor, madam.
Your Excellency, thank you very much on behalf of the Embassy of Bosnia and Herzegovina for giving us an opportunity to participate at this very important event and panel discussion. I will also refer to the comments that have already been made and are related to the international recognition and denial of the genocide, particularly having our experience. What are the consequences of the denial and what is the importance of the prevention? So just shortly to remind about the genocide in Srebrenica. Genocide in Srebrenica was committed on the 11th of July, 1995, when Bosnian Serb military forces killed over 8,000 men and boys, Bosnian Muslims. They were hunted down and massacred in the woods and near Srebrenica, many of whose bodies still haven't been found. More than 20,000 women and children were forcibly expelled from their homes. The genocide was committed in the so-called safe area, which was declared by the United Nations resolution. And this way, the UN promised the people of Srebrenica safety and security. Hence, it was a total failure of the UN system on the ground, and its so-called, at that time, peacekeeping and peace monitoring operation, the failure of the international community to protect civilians in this safe zone, the so-called safe zone. So regarding the recognition, two international courts, first of all, the UN International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia and the International Court of Justice, after exhaustive legal processes, have ruled that Srebrenica was a genocide. Also, in 2009, the European Parliament declared 11th of July the official day of remembrance for the victims of Srebrenica. Yet, it still remains a great concern that after 27 years after the war in my country, denial of genocide in Srebrenica still continues and it's still present. The citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina have waited many years for their elected representatives in the parliament to legislate this very serious issue. However, every effort to do so was blocked, unfortunately. So during that time, the situation has gotten worse. Some political leaders were openly praising the finally convicted war criminals, denying that the Srebrenica genocide ever took place. So it is the situation when there is a partially internal denial of the genocide that is internationally recognized. So it became clear to every ordinary citizen in my country that the ongoing denial of genocide is, in fact, its final stage. And if I wish to freely express myself and to say it is again the genocide when people's mental health by denying is killed and victims and their families are humiliated. So tensions were really high and something ought to be done. Fortunately, approximately 8 months ago, the High Representative and the Office of the High Representative in B&H, which oversees the implementation of the Dayton Peace Agreement, amended the criminal law of Bosnia and Herzegovina to make genocide denial, as well as glorification of war criminals, an offense punishable with up to 5 years in prison. Genocide denial is now illegal in Bosnia and Herzegovina. However, it is too early to make conclusions on how this law is going to be implemented and its effects for the reconciliation in the future. but it is important and for us, giant step forward. This move unfortunately triggered another political crisis in our country because the law has been misused by some politicians for dangerous manipulations. And according to those manipulations, the law which forbids denial of genocide in our country marks the entire Serb population as genocidal, and that is the manipulation that is ongoing. So lessons learned from Srebrenica genocide demonstrates how hatred and intolerance can flourish if left unchallenged, and how important it is to act in prevention. Our everyday experience is that hate speech, the glorification of war criminals, and denial of genocide prevents societies from dealing with their collective past and constitute renewed humiliation of the victims. It is extremely important for people to understand that also this kind of national legislation have nothing to do with collective guilt, but instead they deal with individual responsibility. So recognizing the guilt of individuals allows people to unburden themselves from the weight of the past and move on towards a more promising future. As you have just mentioned, here in the United Kingdom, on the Memorial Day every year, we honor the victims and survivors of the genocide. We are grateful for the immense support provided by the UK government by Remembering Srebrenica organization. There are hundreds of volunteers who work with Remembering Srebrenica organization here in the UK in commemorating the genocide and taking social action in their communities each year with the aim to remember the victims, learn the lessons, and pledge to take action through education and through all other means for preventive purposes. So I would like to finish my today's presentation with a quotation of a man, survivor of horrors of war in Bosnia and Herzegovina, who said, "I didn't decide not to hate because I'm a good person. I decided not to hate because hating would have finished the job they had started so successfully. It would have poisoned me."
Thank you so much, Ms. Saraj Lik, if I've pronounced it correctly, but Jasmina sounds, a nice name too, very close. We have Bengali names with Jasmina. Thank you so much. That was such an emotive, statement spoken from your heart, and the atrocities that you had experienced during the Srebrenica Day or during the Bosnian War. I just want to mention 2 points that you've highlighted, so extremely important: the culture of denial and the humiliation of continued, the culture of denial gives birth to the culture of repetition of crimes of genocide. And at the same time, the need for, how the victims can be repeatedly humiliated when this genocide is denied by the war criminals. And this is a very common phenomena in Bangladesh genocide. As you know, when Bangladesh was created, there was this political divide. So, the majority and 99% of the people who believed in an independent Bangladesh based on secular values, as the Indian High Commissioner just mentioned, that our founding father has seen what happened during, the days of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. And therefore, he wanted to create a Bangladesh which would not be an Islamic Republic, which would be a secular People's Republic of Bangladesh. And those who didn't believe in it had caused his assassination later on. And since then, the question of victims of the genocide, victims of war crimes, victims of rape, it has remained unresolved. And we also, the professor, Joanne had mentioned that when it comes to international, journals, articles have been submitted, but it did not get published. So we need to work much more with the country of Bosnia and your government to how to get, you gave us some of the examples, how to get our genocide recognized. Whether we can take it to the UN, we don't know, but we do want recognition in the UK. I'm working I meet your ambassador all the time, and I'll work with him to get Bangladesh genocide more recognized in the UK Parliament, and the people and academia is very important. So we have a lesson to learn from the Bosnian genocide case, and we will continue to work with the friendly government of Bosnia to get this. Absolutely. Thank you so much for attending our event today and giving your personal experience. So expressing solidarity with the victims of the Bosnian and the Srebrenica, genocide. At this point, we have three more speakers today in our panel discussion. We have Dr. Meghna Guhu-Thakurda, Mr. Sultan Mahmud Sharif, and our chief guest of today, His Excellency Lord Remy Ranger. Normally in our culture, the chief guest speaks at the end, but I would ask Lord Ranger to remain a little bit patient, and I'll give the floor to Professor Dr. Meghna Guhu-Thakurda. And as I mentioned many times during my interventions today, that Miss Professor Guhu-Thakurda is the daughter of Professor Jyotirmoy Guhu-Thakurda, a professor at the Dhaka University of ethnic religion from Hindu minority, and during those days, and he was brutally murdered by Pakistan armed forces. His only, crime was that he was a leading intellectual, a humanist, eminent humanist, and a professor at the Dhaka University. And also, he was blindfolded and, murdered on the night of 14 December. So we are very proud to have his daughter amongst us today. And I'd request Professor Guhu-Thakurda to take the floor. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you clearly.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, His Lordship, and respected panelists for such a energizing discussion on the Bangladesh genocide. That is something so close to my heart and to our lives, people like me. Before I go on to give a very brief description of actually what happened at that night. So that would give you a graphic picture of what genocide is. I would like to address what Professor Joanne Lutz mentioned about academia. And since I was in the academia, I still am in a way as a researcher. I think it has taken its toll, the whole genocide has taken its toll on the body politic of Bangladesh, and there has been sort of a political resistance to it, as has been mentioned. But I think now a lot of our generation, I mean, it took me 50 years to put down on pen and paper what I went through on that night, just one night. It took me 50 years to do that in English. But a lot of writing has happened. My mother wrote her book on the genocide several years ago, 20 years ago, but they're all in Bangla. So one of the points to remember is why it has not yet gone into the international scene is that most of the writings, and there's plenty of them, I can tell you that, have been done in Bangla. But nowadays, some of the very important Bengali books are being translated. And I would also urge our Bangladesh missions abroad to help resource this translations, further translations of very important biographies, autobiographies of victims and survivors of the genocide in Bangladesh, because a lot of them are very important books in Bengali, but not available for the outside world. So with that short sort of note, let me go on to say what happened to me and to my family on the 25th night, 1971. I was 14 years old. I was in Holy Cross School, a standard, the 10th standard. the last year of school, in fact. And my father was reader in English literature. He actually went back home to serve back into the Dhaka University after doing his PhD at King's College, London. And he was in 1970, he was also made the provost of this Jagannath Hall, the dormitory that we are mentioning time and again as the site, one of the major sites of genocide on the 25th night. And so we were living just opposite the hall, and it was near to 12. It wasn't midnight yet. We heard lots of firing, and my father and I'm a single child with my mom and dad, and we all slept on the floor for a bit, so that the bullets wouldn't hit us. Then we heard a convoy of jeeps coming in, and we had a flat. We were on the ground floor. We had a flat of 3 stories high with 2 flats on each side. That means 6 flats. So they started banging on the door, each door, and we went to open it, but we couldn't because they banged so hard that it was jammed. And then 3 soldiers came in, and they were all Pakistani uniforms that they wore. One seemed like an officer. He spoke in Urdu.
I think Professor Go Thakurta is having a bit of problem with her connection. Can we text her? Give her a call. Sorry, Professor, your line is getting disrupted and we're not being able to listen to you. Shall we move to the next speaker, and in the meantime tell Professor to come back again? So I think we're having a bit of technical problem with Professor Go Thakurta's Wi-Fi connection. So at this point, I will give the floor to Mr. Sultan Mahmud Sharif to briefly say a few words on. Before we give the floor to our chief guest, I just want to mention that Mr. Sultan Mahmud Sharif was a student in 1971. He went, when the war started, he went to Bangladesh, went to Indian refugee camps, and again came back to England. But he has been a member of the Student Action Committee, of many of the action committees that were, apexed by a central action committee, which was headed by, a 5-member executive committee by Justice Abu Said Chaudhry, who was the first High Commissioner here in London during the 1971 war. And he and his family had worked extensively as students to create international awareness, particularly in the United Kingdom Parliament, to get recognition of Bangladesh genocide. I give him the floor, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you. I start with paying homage to the martyrs of 1971, my people who were indiscriminately killed, and the memory of those dead bodies, injured people, and tortured people still live with me. With great attention, I was listening to Meghna Ghosh Thakurta about her father, a great scholar and one of our pioneers. That is the story of 3 million people and more who gave their life to liberate Bangladesh. I pay my respect to the greatest of all Bengalis, who also sacrificed his life along all his family members, except his 2 daughters who were at that time abroad, Sheikh Hasina, the present Prime Minister, and her sister, Sheikh Rehana. My people, young, old, children grown up, men, women, weak, strong, indiscriminately were massacred by the Pakistan army. On the first night of 25th March, according to reckoning of international journalists who were in Dhaka, the total number in Dhaka alone were about 100,000 murders by the surrounding Pakistani occupying forces. My memory, I was in London of that night, is still vivid in me, because on that night I was, with the difference of 5 to 6 hours between Bangladesh time and London time, I was in front of Pakistan High Commission demanding of them not to use forces on the ordinary people in a dialogue that was between politicians and the elected representatives and their leaders. And at one stage, about I think 7 o'clock, I went home to have my dinner and come back, and my wife informed me that newspaper people were looking for me to know what is happening, because Pakistanis were claiming that Sheikh Mujib has declared independence. And Pakistan has, on that effect, they have given a press release to all the newspapers. So I rang up various people and found out that about 3-4 hours before that, the Pakistan army went into action, started killing everywhere, including Jagannath Hall, about whose Meghna Ghur Thakurta was mentioning, and the EPR, BDR, and the police lines, Radarbagh, and all the dormitories, student dormitories, Iqbal Hall, SM Hall, Jagannath Hall, and Fazlullah Hall, and the Dhaka University campus. They were massacring there. So, and then I got report that after Yahya Khan left East Pakistan of that time, or Bangladesh, the massacre started around before midnight. And Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, I heard from our leaders subsequently that around 10:30, he sent a message where he said, if this happens, which he thinks is coming, this message should be read in the various media, so that Bangabandhu's declaration of independence is go public. So I immediately took my friends and drafted a letter, and we went to Fleet Street and circulated in all the newspapers, saying that after Pakistan army has attacked the civilian population all over the country, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman has declared independence. So even 26th news covers that Pakistan army has attacked and Sheikh Mujib in retaliation has declared independence. I'm just clearing that point. And the next 9 months, about the next 9 months, a reaction of UN Secretary General, the United Nations, which has up till now not recognized this as genocide. But Youth Hunt on 3rd June 1971 said that the happenings in East Pakistan constitute one of the most tragic episode in human history. Of course, it is for future history to gather facts and make their own evaluation, but it has been a very terrible blot on a page of human history. By that time, British public, British Parliament members were having resolution after resolution, as from 27th March, when Peter Shaw stood up in the House on a motion and asked explanation from then Foreign Minister Sir Alec Douglas Hume, whose answer was that it is the internal affair of Pakistan and he cannot do anything about it, but he will mention it. But the MPs, British Parliament members, did not stop at that. By June, more than 200 MPs were able to give an advertisement in the Times newspaper on 30th June saying genocide in East Pakistan was the heading of that big full-page advertisement in Times. And whole world was watching, and all the reports were that genocide is happening in Bangladesh. It is unfortunate that the part of American administration headed by Henry Kissinger and the like are still alive with the view of denial, like the Pakistanis, that they did not commit any genocide. The whole world knows that it was a genocide, and I am very humbled by the research made by Professor Joan Digorgio Luz and our young Bengali origin Bailis Ahmad. I would ask both of them to cooperate with the people of Bangladesh, that like Bosnia-Herzegovina, like Cambodia, the genocide of Bangladesh is recognized by the United Nations, because at least by recognizing that the victims of this genocide, their children and those who have been violated, they will feel that their life and their sacrifice has been recognized by all good people of the world, and the creation of Bangladesh, those of us who are still alive, are indebted to them, and our future generation will remain indebted to these great people of my country, whose honor, dignity, life, liberty, everything was taken away. I urge upon all of you, including my very dear High Commissioner Tasnim Muna, to work towards that, and in a life, if you can achieve that, I say same to Bailis, if they can achieve that, they will be able to finish the task Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman started and Sheikh Hasina in 1926 with the help of the House of Parliament, brought a resolution adopting as a genocide day, 25th March as 71 as a genocide day. Thank you for giving me a chance to be present in front of all these dignitaries and speak up my mind as a humble freedom fighter. Thank you. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu.
Thank you, the very respected, very distinguished Mr. Sultan Mahmud Sharif, who is a true overseas freedom fighter from here in the UK, and we could hear the first-hand experience of what they did, what sacrifices they did they made for War of Liberation of Bangladesh. But most importantly, being an octogenarian, he had given us a guidance as to what we have to achieve. And very clearly, he doesn't want the 1971 genocide to be forgotten. And because if we do that, if there's a denial of that, then all the victims and the families of the victims, they will never get solace. We owe it to them. So we're indebted to them for their sacrifices, and we owe it to them to have some recognition. And we look forward to working with Professor at from US as well as from UCL to do that. So I assure him that I will continue to work with people like Lord Remy Ranger at the British Parliament. I think we can start the charity at home. And here in the UK, we can start a campaign as for recognition of it to the UK Parliament, which was the case in 1971, thanks to people like Mr. Sultan Mahmud Sharif, who worked for it in Action Bangladesh and the Student Action Committees and the Central Action Committees. Thank you very much, Sultan Bhai, for joining us. I would now go back to Professor Dr. Guhu Thakurta. Her connection was disrupted at that time, but if she could finish her intervention, we'll just listen to her personal experience. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you very much. I'll rush through it, in fact, before another disturbance happens. I was saying that the soldiers came and then took my father away. My father asked why they were taking away, but they didn't answer. They dragged him away outside and they came back to search our house. In the meantime, when our front door was opened by the soldiers themselves, we saw that they had brought down another professor of statistics, Munir Zaman, and three other boys in his family, one son and two nephews. And the whole family was trying, like a tug of war between four soldiers and the family. They were trying to keep them and resist from the soldiers taking them away. But my mother shouted out that let them go, if you resist, they will shoot you. They came for my husband and I let him go. But then suddenly there were 8 shots, and then we went back to the door and we saw Munir Zaman and the 3 other boys in his family were shot dead. They were lying in the pools of their own blood, and some of them were spot dead, some of them were groaning for water. We tried to rush helter-skelter getting them water. In the meantime, someone from their family told my mother, look, they've shot your husband as well. He's out in there in the front and he's falling out to your knee. So it's like a thunder struck us. We took whatever we could, water and whatever, and went backside through our backyard. We went in the front and there was my father lying. He was fully conscious, but he was paralyzed waist downwards. He told us this thing. He said, they stood me up here and then they asked me my name. I told them my name. Then they asked me my religion. I said Hindu, and immediately there was an order to shoot. So one bullet hit him in the nape of his neck, the other in the waist, and then they left. But in the meantime, some other people came and we tried to carry him. We couldn't take him to a hospital. There was a curfew on. There was patrolling all around the streets. So we took him back into our flat over the blood and the dead bodies of Munir Zaman and his other inmates. And then we had to keep him the whole of that night without medical treatment. My mom did whatever first aid she could. And then the whole of the next day and the whole of the next night as well, the 26th of March, our Independence Day. And we know it was independence because he actually asked us to turn on the radio. And we heard the announcement of Sheikh Mujib saying, we are now independent state. And so it was only on the 27th morning, he was still conscious, but was getting weaker. But someone from the streets came in and we gave them, unknown people wanting to help us. We gave them my father's, in a stretcher, and they took him to the medical college was just across the road. They took him there, we followed him, but the doctor said that the injury was very critical and they could only make him comfortable. So he breathed his last on the 30th of March, 1971. I just want to show, we couldn't go back to our house, but later in April, we went back to it was a campus flat. My mother searched the veranda, the porch, near where my father was shot, and we picked up these bullets. I don't know if you can see this.
We see them. Yes.
Yeah. This was the bullets that we assume would have hit my father, because it is a bullet. What happens to a bullet when it goes through a body? And it was found in a part of the veranda in front of which my father was shot. So we assumed it is his bullet. This my mother kept with her all along this 50 years now. She's dead, so I'm keeping it, and hoping someday justice will be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gutakurda. I have no words to console you at the loss of your father and the millions other. All the professors and intellectuals, just because they were Bengali or just because they were Hindu, who were murdered brutally on the night of 25th March and then on for the next 9 months. But we know that your father, and I do apologize that I didn't mention it, that he was the provost of Jagannath Hall. And we know that Jagannath Hall is named after the Hindu god of Shiva. And this was a allocated student hall for Hindu students of Dhaka University, but there were many Muslim students also shot in that field. And we know there's a recorded video of that. So thank you for your sharing your personal and extremely painful experience of what you saw at the age of 14. And the way you have kept the bullets that shot your father's friend, Professor Moniruzzaman, and his family, and you sought justice. And we would like to work with you and others and the professors that the people that had participated today, all the distinguished panelists, because, especially Professor Joanne, her recommendations, extremely important that we have articles published in international journals and conferences of intellectuals who work on genocide and have stark recognition in the academia. It's extremely important that we have academic recognition of our genocide, and exactly the nature of genocide that was, it was targeted on intellectuals. And this is so much similarity with the Second World War and the killing of the Jewish intellectuals and the cultural personalities. It was so similar in Dhaka, what the Pakistanis did during 1971. I would like to express solidarity from Bangladesh High Commission London with you and your family and all other families who have victims of 1971 genocide, and would like to pay our respects to your very distinguished father and for the sacrifices that their generation made for us. At this point, we've come to the end of our program. We have our chief guest or guest of honor. We can say Lord Remy Ranger. He's been patiently listening to every intervention. What can I say about Lord Remy Ranger? He's the Baron of Mayfair and a life peer, but the gentleman was born in 1947, and I know that his family is a victim of the 1947 partition. And he also, his brother was a general or a soldier of the Indian Army during the Bangladesh Liberation War. And we have these Indian peers in the British Parliament. And there are many more who couldn't participate due to various reasons. And they really, really expressed their loss that they couldn't speak at this event. And quite often I'm asked that why is it that the Indian peers or the Indian members of Parliament speak in our occasion? It is so because India was the greatest witness of what happened in Bangladesh in 1971. It was because the Indian soldiers and the commanders were on the soil of Bangladesh, witnessing and protecting our people, sending refugees to India. So isn't it not only natural that, the experiences of those families, there was not a single family in Bangladesh that was not a victim of the 1971, that one relative or the other was not a victim. Similarly, in India, there was many families who are victims of the 1947 partition, and many families who were connected to the Bangladesh War of Liberation. So Lord Remy Ranger, he's the founding chairman of the co-chairman of the Conservative Friends of India. And we are very, very honored that he has stayed with us the whole program, listened to us, and I would like to have the honor of giving him the floor, sir. You have the floor, sir. Lord Ranger.
Your Excellency, High Commissioner of Bangladesh, Saida Muna Tasneen, I'm indebted to you for inviting me and to share this very somber occasion when we remember all those people who perished in the hand of Pakistani army. And I pay compliment to you for working so hard and keeping the names of those people and all those people who sacrificed and who made it possible for people of Bengal, West Bengal, to become an independent nation of Bangladesh. When we celebrate the 50th Independence Day of Bangladesh, while we're celebrating, enjoying, and feeling happy, we must never forget those who never had the opportunity to breathe in a free Bangladesh. They were perished, they were lost their lives, no fault of their own, but the fault of dictators from Pakistan. So I compliment you. You work very hard. You connect with all the people, and you champion the case for Bangladesh so eloquently. And I'm so proud to be supporting your endeavor to make sure the Bangladesh people get justice, and also people of those who perish, their memories are permanently remembered as a genocide and Holocaust day. And I hope one day there will be a Holocaust memorial, not only in Bangladesh, but also in UK, because UK, Bangladesh, India, there should be one in India as well, in Calcutta, because the bloods of Indian soldiers, Mukti Bahini, and volunteer forces of Bangladesh were shed for the freedom of Bangladeshi people. So our history is now interlinked forever, because we must remember that at the time of the struggle, India was the only country which opened its gate to the refugees who were escaping death and destruction from the Pakistan army. And it is also worth remembering that Pakistan was ally of America. And if India was not as successful as it is today, it was also a struggling country, but still they did not hesitate to support the people of Bangladesh who were suffering tremendously. It is so, depressing to hear the stories of so many people, including Mr. Sultan Sharif, who volunteered to go back to his mother country and become a freedom fighter. We salute freedom fighters because they love their country more than they love their family and their own lives. So therefore, we must never, ever forget those who made this day possible, when the people of Bangladesh are now living in freedom and punching above their weight in the world, because your country is now a success story. You are going from strength to strength. Your women, you have chose to be a secular constitution like that of India. I always give example. In 1947, two countries were made, one to promote people on the basis of their religion, one to promote people regardless of religion, India. You can imagine India is the cradle of civilization. There are every religion, every culture, every language is in India, living side by side for centuries. And the country which was created on the basis of religion, you can imagine the religion, the theory of Mr. Jinnah that Muslim can only live with Muslim was proved wrong, because Muslim committed atrocities on their fellow Muslim on an unparalleled scale. It is so moving stories what we have heard today, that how a fellow Muslim could be so cruel, so brutal to their fellow Muslim who identified themselves with them and agreed to be partner with them, and how they turned against those people who showed their loyalty and support to those people. So therefore, it is a eye-opener to see how people can stoop so low, and how they can undermine democracy and aspiration of people. You know what? On this day, we must also salute the leadership of Bangabandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He won the election, yet he was denied the result. So, but he stood firm. His leadership was very inspirational. He articulated the case for the freedom for Bengali people, and he prevailed, because truth will always prevail in the end, although he was fighting with the very brutal dictators. But thanks to the help of India, they say a friend in need is a friend indeed. And at that time, the country who stood by Bangladesh was India. Their soldier fought, and Pakistan opened front in the other side, in the west. Pakistan also, they were, India was engulfed with Pakistani soldiers from every side. So it has been a very dark chapter in the history of humanity. And I hope we learn from this and we move forward. And I will say that it is the sacrifices of volunteers. My brother was a major in the Indian Army whose job was to train the volunteers of Mukti Bahini. They came with bare hand. They were ready to fight because they were so fed up and so horrified the way they were treated, their countrymen. And you heard from Her Excellency how women were raped, how people were killed, how Operation Searchlight was to find people who resisted freedom, who were not, who some of them were not even Muslim. The Hindus people were also killed. We're great ambassador for their faith when people use hatred. I mean, the Bangladesh now just demonstrated that how fast their economy is improving and going forward, and how the women of Bangladesh are playing an important role in the development of Bangladesh. You know, I'm a posthumous child because my father was also assassinated in 1947 for opposing the breakup of India on the basis of religion. He pleaded with the then Muslim leader not to cut and run, because after independence, India will be secular, democratic country with one person, one vote. Together we make our destiny. But unfortunately, when people were given opportunity to smash and grab, take something in the name of religion, they went for it. They started killing their neighbors, the people who lived in their country for centuries. The communities were shattered, communities were divided. That was Mr. Jinnah's dream of having an independent country for Muslims. And today that country is unfortunately not a very good example of Mr. Jinnah's creation, because that country is now a home for many terrorist organizations. And unfortunately, we have had 4 wars since the independence. Millions of people were perished during the partition of India. Many people became refugees in their own home, and including my own family. Coming back to the strength of women, on the year of the women, we must now take a leaf from the book of those people who give equality to women and respect every other faith. This is a prerequisite for any nation to progress. If my mother wasn't educated, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today. And if a husband dies prematurely, like my father did, he will leave behind a woman unable to deal with an uncaring world, and mother unable to look after his children. So therefore, I salute the people of Bangladesh by sending a women high commissioner to this country as a great role model. She works very hard. I'm full of admiration for her passion for Bangladeshi people, her passion for her country, how she wants her country to be recognized as a force for good, and how she works very hard that those people who perish during the liberation struggle are never forgotten. They are remembered, and I would like to see their name carved in stone in the Holocaust Memorial. I will be the first to support financially that memorial if it ever starts, because like the Jewish people, they have a Holocaust memorial, and we have to know, the next generation has to know the price of freedom they paid, how lucky they are today that they are independent, they are equal in the world, they are not under any other power. So therefore, I like to pay tribute to all those leaders, especially Bangabandhu, who would have been 100 this year, is centenary year. We salute in the 5th year of Bangladesh independence. You have become a force. Even in the people in United Kingdom, Bengali people have become a role model. They are well respected. 2 days ago, I attended an event where the chairman of the Conservative Party came. It was well attended, and Your Excellency, you were there. It speaks volumes about the people of Bangladesh, how they are moving politically and how they are making their place in this country. And you are now an asset, and people respect Bengali people. You work very hard, you generate a lot of employment, wealth for this country, and you are really created a place for yourself. We Indian people are very proud to be your friend. And as I said, we will stand by Bangladesh because we were one. Although we have now have separate two homes, but that doesn't mean we should not respect each other's feelings, and we should become, a lesson should be learned by the Pakistani people that if Bangladesh and India can live so harmoniously, so peacefully, why can't they, for the greater good of their people? The Pakistani army is milking that country at the cost of poor people who have no voice. And I hope that our friendship will be a beacon of hope for all those people who see that friendship can flourish when we have equal value. Religion is not important, it's the values that we share are more important. And you can see if the religion had the strength, all the Muslim country would record free movement of people and goods in their country. It is not. But what is more important is our common concern, our values, and our future. So therefore, we must keep religion in our heart. We should not allow religion to divide us. We should not allow religion to create division in the humanity, mankind. We are all one. So therefore, on this note, I salute all those people who made this possible, that today we are celebrating 50th anniversary of glorious Bangladesh. As our High Commission said, a golden Bangladesh. The dream of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman is to make each one of you who belong to Bangladesh owe a debt of gratitude to that great man, who gave you leadership, because leadership is very, very important. With the leadership, the communities can go from strength to strength. A community is as great as a leader. So therefore, you are very blessed that the father of nation was some iconic figure who was not only by Bengali people, but the people across the world. And I have seen his speeches. I've watched him. I've seen his commitment, dedication for his people. So he is a iconic figure. His legacy will remain a guiding force to the people of Bengal. And on that note, I wish you every success and joy Bangla.
Thank you, Lord Ranger, for your wonderful statement, for your expressions of solidarity with the people of Bangladesh and the victims of 1971 genocide. And you did make some very specific points. To begin with, you said that here in the UK, and I see that there are 3 flags right next to you, which is India, Bangladesh, and United Kingdom. So you're truly representing this trilateral spirit of cooperation. And this year we celebrate 50 years of Bangladesh-UK diplomatic relations, sir. And therefore it's great for you, we look forward to your participation on the 28th of March in our diplomatic reception, where we make a toast to Her Majesty on her Platinum Jubilee. So I just want to recall one thing, that what was UK's position in 1971? As you know, that someone just mentioned, and Sultan Bhai just mentioned, that it is true that when the UK Parliament, Peter Shaw, did raise this, and he was the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee at that time. And it was, the foreign policy was that we will call it, the UK will call it the internal affairs of Pakistan, because it was UK-US alliance and common foreign policy. However, you know very well that UK's fleet did not reach the Bay of Bengal, they turned back, whereas the US fleets did reach it. And, the Russian Federation was supporting Bangladesh at that time alongside with India. And Russia also sent its flotilla there. But UK did turn back. And eventually at the UN Security Council, when there was a voting on a civil war in Pakistan and sending a peacekeeping force there and stopping the civil war, which to us was not a civil war, it was a war of independence at that time, UK abstained. So their abstention gave them a neutral position in the Bangladesh War of Liberation. And we thank the UK for that position. We express our gratitude to the Conservative government of the time for that position. And also we express our gratitude to Lord Peter Shaw, who as a Labour MP had absolutely was the frontline voice of Bangladesh Liberation War at that time, because his constituency was in East London and the people of East London and Brick Lane were Bengalis, patriotic Bengalis like Sultan Bhai, who were demanding from the MP to raise this voice at the Parliament. Therefore, UK Parliament played a great voice, and I look forward to working with you, sir, whether we can bring back, there's an all-party parliamentary group on genocide at the UK Parliament, and Lord Sheikh is the co-chair there. Rushnar Ali of Bangladesh origin is a vice chair, and we look forward to working with all of you and bringing back another motion at the British Parliament. And also you mentioned about a memorial for Holocaust of the Bengalis. And, we look forward to working with you on that one too. And we look forward to celebrating our Independence Day, which is coming after a few hours on 26th of March. And in that note, I do want to read out, you paid great tributes to our father of the nation, who was a symbol of secularism with singular inclusion and peace. And couple of hours from now in Bangladesh time, on 25th of March, this was happening on 26th March, right after midnight, about 20 minutes past midnight, which is about 2.5 hours from now, he declared the independence of Bangladesh. And this is what he said, and I'd like to read it out. This may be my last message from today. Bangladesh is independent. I call upon the people of Bangladesh, wherever you might be, and with whatever you have, to resist the army of occupation to the last. Your fight must go on until the last soldier of the Pakistan occupation army is expelled from the soil of Bangladesh, and finally victory is achieved. Those were his instructions before he was arrested, and he knew that he'll be arrested, and he was taken to imprisonment. But then when he came back, he did come to United Kingdom as his first transit as President of Independence Bangladesh. So our tribute to our father of the nation. And I'd like to conclude by a comment. Our Honorable Prime Minister issued a message today on the occasion of the Bangladesh Genocide Day. And she said that even at the 51st anniversary of Genocide Day in Bangladesh, genocide, oppression, and other humanitarian disasters are still happening in some parts of the world. I believe that by following the principle of peace of Father of the Nation of Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and avoiding all forms of discrimination, communalism, and colonialization, we can easily build a peaceful world order. And I call upon the country's people, that is us, let us, inspired by the spirit of our great war of liberation, unite and devote ourselves to building the dream of the Father of the Nation, the Golden Bengal. And you're truly, you depicted, I would like to end with this, that what is Golden Bengal? It's a state of affair of our country, of a republic, where all people can live peacefully with equal rights, regardless of their race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, regardless of everything, and economic classes, that they can enjoy freedom. And you said that the price of freedom that their generation had paid, and I'd like to pay again, I go back to Professor Guhu Thakurda, to whom we have to say our generation is indebted to your father's generation, and we do feel guilty that the price of freedom was very high and the sacrifices they made, and till today, perhaps you don't feel that you have received justice. So on that note, we do hope on the Bangladesh Genocide Day, 25 March. I thank all the panelists for participating today, all our colleagues from the embassies, from the Indian High Commission, Bosnian Embassy, from US, from Dhaka, and from here in the United Kingdom, that let us pay our respects to the victims of genocide all over the world, including the victims of Bengali genocide, and work together to make some recognition of Bengali genocide. Like we said, with the ICJ, we work with UCL, but also with members of Parliament, of UK Parliament. Our job is to look after United Kingdom, and I'll do my best to do that. With those words, I say, Joy Bangla, let Bangladesh live forever, and let Bangladesh and UK friendship live forever. Thank you.
Joy Bangla.
We are signing off from Bangladesh High Commission, London. Thanks to all my colleagues here for organizing this. Thank you.